Hello, my name is Justin Stanford. I'm the HLTA in the Deaf Hub here at St John Fisher Catholic High School in Peterborough. I would like to share with you today how we as a school promote positive transitions for our SEND students. There are many good practices that we use in school. One method or practice on its own isn't going to be enough. You need to combine lots of different practices together to make a really positive transition. The list in front of you are all the different techniques or practices that we use in school to increase the likelihood of a really positive transition. Over the coming slides, I will explain to you in detail how we do that. The first part of a successful transition is identifying future students. The earlier you can do this, the better. The Sensory Support Service at the local authority are very good at informing us of future students coming through. Whilst the parents are deciding which school is suitable, the teachers of the deaf, teachers of the vision impaired and teachers of multisensory impairment will attend any visits with the student. This really relaxes the student and the parents. And it just makes the visits more successful. It relieves anxiety and creates a link between primary and secondary. The Statutory Assessment and Monitoring Service, or the SAMS team at the local authority, are responsible for coordinating the statutory process in relation to education, health and care plans, or EHCPs. Once the parents have made the decision on which school to send their child to, and during the annual review, the EHCP will be updated and then passed on to our SENCO. This will then be shared with relevant members of staff, and at this point it's vital that you read the EHCP and start to get to know and understand the students' needs, what they like, what they dislike. It's all about building a picture. Primary school information collection will also happen early on. This will give us information on grades, predicted grades, any child protection, early help or looked after child. And this is information that we can use to build a picture of the student. One last thing to consider on identifying future students is the visits into the primary setting. There is nothing better than meeting the student in person, seeing them face to face, and letting the student see you as well as us seeing them. Again, it helps us to build that picture. The first thing that you need to understand is that every person with autism is different. What techniques work for one may not work for another. This is why it is vitally important to read and understand their EHCP. We could talk for hours about ASD and ADHD. To be honest, that's for a different day. The key points you need to understand here are sometimes the conditions can overlap. Also, you may have a student who is deaf and has ASD or ADHD. These students will find it extra difficult in acquiring and using language and basic communication skills. When a child who is deaf also has autism, learning and communication become even more difficult than for a child with deafness alone. You need to be very aware of this fact. There will be strategies to use in the EHCP. When you meet the student on visits, you would also get an idea of their needs. You can use your EHCP knowledge to build good relationships, as you already know their likes and their dislikes. If in doubt, speak with someone from the Sensory Support Service. They will have experience and prior knowledge of the student, and they will know what works best. During the student's visit to your school, you have a great opportunity to make some memories without them even realising. What I found works really well is letting the students have an iPad and then just take them around the school, let them take any photos of whatever interests them. If they are a little shy, then you can take the iPad and you can take photos for them. Make it fun. Visit key rooms. For example, maybe you know their foreman or their house office. Visit the sports hall, football pitch, gym. The student may be visited more than once, so try not to overwhelm them on their first visit. These photos can then be printed, laminated and sent back with the student, so they can show their family and friends. We also use a transition booklet. We talk about this with the student, we go through it with them, and then we let them take the transition booklet home to complete, and then they bring it back on their next visit. If anyone would like a copy of this transition booklet, please email me and I'll send it out to you. When the student is visiting, it's also a great time to introduce any mentors that will be mentoring them next year. Another good idea is to let them see students from their previous school. So any students that were in their school from the year above that are now in, say, year 7 and they're in year 6, if they know each other, it's a great way to introduce them back to seeing each other again. That seems to work really well. Moving from one year to another is hard enough. Moving from one primary school to another primary school is difficult. But going from primary school to secondary school is enormous. And it's enormous for most children, to be honest. You've got a completely different change of environment. You have a small setting to a large setting. You have one teacher to multiple teachers. You've gone from a school where you're the oldest to a school where you're the youngest. And it can be really, really, really difficult for some of these students. If we now factor in children with additional learning needs, it becomes even more important to prepare these students for their transition. If a child struggles with a transition, it can have a negative impact on their well-being and their mental health, and in turn it can affect their academic achievement. We need to be aware of this and reduce any anxiety we can. We do this by using all of the methods I'm going to be talking to you about today in this presentation. The stuff that I've already spoken to you about and the stuff that's coming. This is now going to go back to knowing your student, reading their EHCP and understanding their needs. If you are aware of any anxiety needs, then you need to be proactive to prevent issues and to increase their confidence and self-esteem. You need to be in contact with parents before they start and during their time at school if they have anxiety needs. The parents will be the key to this. They will know if the student has experienced anxiety, because sometimes students, in fact quite a lot of the time, students may not always show how they are feeling in school. They mask it. Just need to make sure that you are aware. Something I noticed this year was modelling positive relationships between staff from different settings. For example, we recently had a TA from a primary school visit with a year 6 student. Upon her visit, the TA noticed one of our members of staff. They actually knew each other from previous jobs many years ago. The year 6 student observed a really nice conversation between the two adults. One adult he knew very well, and the other one a stranger to him. I could see it made the student much more relaxed, and in the future he won't forget that. He will now find it easier to form relationships with that member of staff. One-page profiles are a great way of being able to share information quickly and efficiently. They take about 5 minutes to read and give you a good insight into the student's needs. You can get to know the student's likes and dislikes, what challenges they face, and best of all, how to support them. Although they are not as detailed as an EHCP, they have the benefit of being much quicker to read. These will be a very good tool to use to keep consistency between teachers, and in turn help to make transitions positive. When it comes to positive transitions, everyone needs to play their part. The key point I want to make here is that we need to make sure we're all communicating. Teachers need to be aware of the needs of their students, and EHCPs need to be read. One-page profiles need to be shared, and if a cover teacher or cover supervisor is delivering the lesson, then the TA will need to communicate the needs of the student there and then. A big point I want to make is consistency. We need to make sure we have consistency between all teachers and TAs. This is important to ensure a positive transition. And finally, the linked TA of the child should be taking responsibility to make sure that all teachers know the needs of the student. We have recently set up a mentoring program in school. This is yet another tool we can use to improve the transition process of our SEND learners. We know that children will naturally talk with their peers about problems before they talk to an adult. This is why we have set up the scheme to run next academic year. We are currently in the process of training up some Year 10 students in mentoring next year's intake. From this, we are hoping to promote positive self-esteem and emotional well-being, and we're also hoping to increase the motivation of learners and their self-confidence. One of the last points I want to make is about communication with parents. Parents will play a big role in the transition of their children. It is important to build good relationships with parents early on. The first time you may meet the parents is at an EHCP review before they even start at secondary school. The parents may feel anxious for their child about starting a new school. It is at this point where you can reassure the parents, answer any questions that they may have, and build relationships. When the student starts, it's important to keep a line of communication open with the parent. If the student is struggling, the parent will be the first person to know. They need to be able to communicate with you and let you know how the student is feeling early on. Please let the students know that you're in communication with their parents. This builds trust between you and the student and will help if any problems arise. There are many ways we can measure a successful transition. The obvious ones are to use data. We can use data from assessments. We can see from data any progress made over a term. We can check annual reviews. We can see whether they've reached their targets. We can get information from parents about how they feel their child has done. We can even check attendance figures, and we can see whether their attendance is better than previous years, or whether their attendance is improving as the year goes on. Are they late to lessons? Are they late in the mornings? But in my opinion, the biggest measure is the student themselves. How do they appear? Are they happy? Are they talkative, smiling? Do they have friends? What do they do at lunchtimes? Are they attending extracurricular activities? These are the questions that you should be asking yourself, and these, in my opinion, are the biggest measure of a successful transition. We've come to the end of the PowerPoint video now. If anyone has any questions or would like me to send over the transition booklet or anything really, please email me at justin.stanford@stjohnfisherschool.org.uk. Thank you.